Firing somebody's not something that people really enjoy doing. When you do have to fire someone though, it's imperative that you do so gracefully and with respect. Just like any relationship, you want to break things off decisively and peacefully. I've terminated my fair share of people over the last 15 years, and during that time I picked up lots of advice and tips from various people and developed some of my own philosophies on how to go about performing a termination. I've distilled all of that down in the 14 tips that I'm going to share with you in this video. Tip number 1, follow local laws and regulations. The items that I'm covering in this video are best practices and philosophies. Laws vary from location to location, so make sure you know yours. Tip number 2 is not to put the burden of guilt on yourself for letting somebody go. The truth is, this is best for them. Now they have an opportunity to find a job that they fit better and contribute. And frankly, they fired themselves. If you've done everything you can to coach them up, then pushing them out the door is the best thing you can do for everybody, especially your other employees who are having to pick up the slack of this person if they remain on the team. Yeah, firing people sucks, but you know the saying.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Thanks, Uncle Ben! Tip number 3 is to be compassionate. Prioritizing their self-esteem should be way high up on your list of objectives going into a termination meeting. Don't do things like this.
You're fired. Get out of here.
Or this.
You're fired.
Couple other pieces of being compassionate. Use eye contact. Don't read off a piece of paper to them that they're being terminated. Similarly, don't hand them a piece of paper and let them read for themselves that they're being terminated. Make sure you choose a private place, and please, for the love of God, don't use any sort of security unless there's some sort of credible threat to you or your team. Tip number 4 is that terminations are not one size fit all. For example, terminations for a lack of skill need to be more compassionate than terminations for a lack of will. You know, your disrespectful, rude employees who just don't give a crap. You can be a little bit less compassionate there, but when you're doing layoffs, especially, or you're terminating someone who you've been working with and they just can't get there to where they need to be a lot more compassionate. For me personally, legal compliance is just as important as keeping my integrity during the conversation. Tip number 5 is that they should see it coming. Termination should never be a surprise. If you're doing coaching, feedback, performance management, performance reviews, if you're doing all of that correctly, they're going to see it coming a mile away. Tip number 6 is to do it in person. Never do it over the phone, never do it over email, never do it over text. Schedule it if you need to so that you have time to sit down face to face with them and do it with some compassion and humanity. Tip number 7 is to plan ahead and practice. This one's self-explanatory, but if you're new to this, it really applies. The next tip is to always have an exit strategy. No, not like exiting the meeting, more like what's going to happen once they're gone. So you should have a plan for covering shifts, revoking access, and escorting them from the building if you feel it's necessary. That's a judgment call. Tip number 9 is to get straight to the point when you sit down with them. Don't beat around the bush, get into it, get it done, and get out. Tip number 10 is to own the decision. Don't use phrasing like, based on conversations with other managers. No, make it very clear that this was your decision. Tip number 11, be clear and leave no room for interpretation. People who are new to giving out terminations really struggle with this. I see it all the time. Keep it short. Don't give them a chance to push back, and especially don't request any feedback from them on the decision. Doing so opens a really uncomfortable door of bargaining, blame, lack of accountability, and you just don't want to go down that road.
Fire someone else.
Unless I just go through with this, you're always going to look at me as the guy who almost fired you.
I knew you'd see it my way, Michael.
You had it right the first time.
Well, maybe I did.
Exactly. You gotta go with your gut, man.
You see what I mean? Remember, when you're doing performance management, it is a discussion that you're leading. But when you're doing a termination, it's not a discussion. You're telling a story. The story is their termination, so they have no part in it until you're done and ask if they have any questions. Tip number 12 is to end with compassion, just like we started. So this is about the time where you're going to review resources with them, let them know things like when their health insurance runs out, let them know that they're going to get the COBRA paperwork in the mail if they have benefits. If they take it really hard, this is your chance to make sure that they're taken care of. So if they don't seem like they can drive, ask if you can call a family member for them. Following up with tip number 13, which is to offer best wishes. Don't use a blanket phrase like, we wish you the best in future endeavors. Yeah, okay, I get that. Actually mean it. If you don't mean it, don't say it. If applicable and you're able to do so, offer references. For example, if they just couldn't do the job that you hired them for, but you could tell they'd be really good at something else, let them know. Hey, if you need someone to say that you showed up every day, worked hard, and had a great attitude, you just couldn't figure out how to work on a grill, I'm happy to do that for you. Please put me down as a reference. I'd be happy to help. Tip number 14, address the termination with the rest of the team. This one might be a little controversial, but I'm very open and transparent, so I think this is really important. If it's in a restaurant, call a server rally. Call a rally of your team, call a pre-shift meeting, whatever. And explain, hey, Jimmy's no longer with us, I let him go today. Don't do this in an email, don't do this in a text message, don't do this in a Facebook group. In person, super important. You want to do it as soon as humanly possible after the termination. The goal of this is to reduce the flow of rumors, because for all you know, the rumors are going to go here to here to here to here. Just cut it out now. Don't let anyone question why they got terminated. Be transparent, but don't talk crap. You don't need to give specifics. Say something like, hey, Jimmy's a great guy. He just, wasn't a good fit here. He just couldn't quite figure out how to make everything fit, but he's going to be really good for someone else. I really wish him the best, but he's not going to be working with us anymore. Invite questions from your team at this point. If anyone has any, squash it now and end it so that you can move on. And that's 14 tips on how to terminate someone with grace. Check out my other videos that are on the screen right now. Until next time, remember, it is a beautiful day to be alive. Later.